Hello out there. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I'm Iris and I am going to make one more video. So we're working with this for a while, so there will probably be several more videos at different stages. But for right now, one more video on this conversation between Mars and Pluto, because this is exact on the day that I'm uploading this, November 3rd. And we are in this mighty, mighty moment of Mars being at the final degree of Cancer, opposite Pluto, who is at the final degree of Capricorn. Pluto is about to move into Aquarius for 20 years. What a November this is. There is a lot going on all over the world. It is one of those moments when it feels like everything is happening all at once, and the astrology of November is incredible. I have a video on that kind of astro forecast of the month. But for this video, I really just wanted to share this message, honestly, that came to me quite strongly today. Because to be totally honest, my whole plan for my Saturday evening was just chilling and relaxing with sweet Romeo, who it turns out is an incredible educator along the lines of Mars and Cancer and self-rest and care, from the way that he just sprawls out in this little place that he's very comfortable in. And then I just got this, I'd been kind of chewing on it all day, and then it really clarified for me this kind of other interpretation of Mars and Pluto. So that's really what I wanted to share with you. And it's very specific because there is a lot of interpreting going on about this conversation of an opposition between Mars and Pluto, and about how it is explosive, and it is, I mean, everything that could happen in the world has there's an astrologer talking about how it could happen in November. And I am not making a video about anything related to that. That's not the type of astrology that I practice. I absolutely don't practice predictive astrology. And I am most interested in astrology as a gift that we receive in this human experience, archetypal and evolutionary astrology, for self-inquiry and for these healing journeys that we are on. And that these healing journeys, Mars opposite Pluto, happening right now, November 3rd, and of course throughout this whole first week of November, and then coming again when Mars is retrograde in Leo at the very beginning of January, so the end of 2004, the beginning of January, and then again in the end of April. And there we'll have Mars direct in Leo, opposite Pluto in Leo. Sorry, Pluto in Aquarius. And there is this evolutionary process that we are in right now about the connection between Mars and Pluto. And so I really want to speak to folks who are on very intentional healing journeys, who are living with childhood trauma, who are living with different traumas from different stages of adulthood that often also pull at our own childhood traumas, that are living complicated lives at the intersections of so many identities, trying to navigate this world that is not just and does promote the values of a very limited few. And when we look at the gift that Mars opposite Pluto offers us on our healing journeys of reclaiming our own power. And there, how beautiful that first lesson comes, Mars in Cancer, opposite that Pluto in Capricorn. Because first, there is something about reclaiming our own drive that does allow us to nurture ourselves, that does allow us to care for ourselves. And then how we also, from there, get to reclaim our creative self, our joy, our beautiful process of feeling creative energy flowing through us and simply self-actualizing through the creative process, whether that is making art or living our life creatively or being creative in your scientific life, however that creativity, it is so beyond simply kind of our art practices. It is the ultimate creative essence of life and our drive to be creative beings in ways that are connected to our authentic soul drive coming up in a new way for the betterment of humanity. That does not have to be explosive. That does not have to be war. Now, we know that we live in complicated times, that we live when many humans are not on journeys of awakening to soul consciousness at certain stages. We know that when we move from fear, we project fear onto others, and we therefore create a vicious cycle that perpetuates and re-perpetuates violence and fear. And fear begets fear. And yet the astrology of this time is offering us so much to reclaim our own Mars drive. And that is not easy. That is not easy when we are living with our own histories of power over us. When we are living with histories of childhood trauma that society still does not talk about. It is not easy when we're living in collective times, when everywhere we look, there is violence going on. And yet the astrology is offering us on our own personal inquiry a new start, literally a clean slate. Saying, okay, this is what I was taught about power. This is what I was taught about male energy. This is what I was taught about success and drive in the world and how I'm supposed to show up and show people how serious and tough I am. And that's how I'm going to climb that social ladder or whatever it is that we've been taught. And this opposition says no. It says absolutely not. It says that is an idea of selfhood and power that is only going to benefit a few, and it's going to create marginalizing, oppressive conditions in micro lives, in our own spheres when we act out of power over, driven by fear, which is a traditional interpretation of Mars and Pluto through a patriarchal lens, and that we can come into something new. And Mars is teaching us about that in ourself. How do we need to be nurtured right now? And how is that going to fuel this evolutionary desire to evolve in a new way, on a new path, for a new future for my soul, and also for the collective, and the gifts that I give to the collective by leading a life of care and compassion. Care and compassion for myself, and care and compassion for others. Care and compassion for those who are driven by fear. And when one is driven by fear, everything becomes a question of power over. Everything becomes, and we have a culture that tends to glamorize and fetishize people who are driven by fear and are just out there trying to get more power, trying to get more fame, trying to get more of this. And then sometimes we say, okay, well, if they do it in a certain way that looks like this, then we like it. But it's still driven by fear. It's still driven by a need to have more fame, to have more power over others. Pluto in Aquarius, opposite Mars, says no. It says, humans, please stop. And this is why I come back to those of us on healing journeys, especially from complicated starts in this life. Complicated starts that almost always come out of complicated intergenerational histories of trauma. And most of us are not trying to just get more. We're navigating our own conditioning around what is a colonial, capitalist, patriarchal intersection. They're always intersected. Conditioning to think that success and willpower is supposed to be about having more. And we come to those journeys of unlearning in our own ways. And most of us, in my experience, really just want more love and want more gratitude and softness and want to be able to have the power that when a boundary is crossed, we say absolutely not, and we say no, and we turn and we go about our life. Right? And so we can also look at how this Mars and this Pluto is also trying to reprogram that we don't react to someone else's fear, that we don't react to someone else's drive for power over in our own life, that we hold ourselves with the accountability and the integrity that Juno, at the final degree of Libra, was squaring during our Scorpio new moon, Mars and Pluto. And Juno moves into the 0 degree of Scorpio, of course, as Mars will move into Leo. And so Juno is talking as well during this initial phase. And she says that we hold ourselves with integrity. We don't take on other people's stuff. It's exhausting. It's exhausting taking on other people's stuff. And we all do it, right? And yet so much vitality comes when we live from an embodied place that helps us not to do that and helps us to reclaim, okay, this is my Mars. Okay, so it is lovely to look at your own natal chart and see where you have Mars. Look at the house, look at the element, look at the sign. You know, how was I conditioned to think about my own drive? How am I naturally inclined to do that? Is it in an earth sign? Is it through the body in this material plane? Is it through intuition in the watery intuition and emotions and connections? Is it through my spirit and action like that in fire? Or is it through air, intellect, and ideas? Right? And everything as I go through the elements, there's nothing there that needs to be in power over. Mars in any element and any sign is simply how we are bringing active drive and willpower into this human experience. And, you know, having a sense of our own Mars and then saying, okay, and now there's this lesson, a lesson that I'm going to journey through the beginning of 2025 with, of really redirecting that active willpower through compassion and care and nurturing and safety. Cancer craves safety, emotional safety, physical safety. And what if all of us kind of working with that energy, helping our souls to come into new manifestations of feeling that power and that care, what if that all goes into the collective amidst whatever November unfolds? Okay, and that becomes part of our healing path. And that also becomes part of finding our authentic self with Pluto and Aquarius and Mars and Leo. Authenticity is part of the name of the game. And again, you know, especially there's a lot of social media out there that's kind of like, this is my authentic self. I tell everyone else to F off and I move into power over because I grip with fear my authentic self. we don't, if we're moving from a place of authenticity, we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to kind of get pulled into a battling of the wills to prove it, because we hold it with Juno's integrity in ourself that we then show to others. And that is a messy journey, especially if we have moved through different stages of victimhood at different stages of our lives. And this is where, radical trauma work is very different than traditional trauma theory. And radical trauma work begins with a survivor-centered view. And what I see out there in the astrology world is not a lot of understanding Mars and Pluto through a survivor-centered view, which is about embodying where we are now, what we're healing, what we've survived, and what we continue to heal and journey with. And there's so much beauty in that journey. And it's not about shifting ourselves to fit some idea of normalcy or fit some idea of a psyche and a body that hasn't lived through what we've lived through, because that's just irrational. It's about finding that place of ease within ourself, which most often requires the complicated journey of self-love. And Mars at the final degree of Cancer, opposite Pluto at the final degree of Capricorn, can be a beautiful culmination of self-love that taps into an ancient elder wisdom, which is the final degree of Capricorn. And there we have this beautiful connection of self-love to that ancient wisdom that will carry us forward, no matter what we face. And we journey on, and so we go. And this was supposed to be about 7 minutes, and it's 17 minutes. And Romeo's already snoozing. He's like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be chilling. It's Saturday evening. So I'm sending this out with lots of love, lots of reclaiming energy for this November. And I will see you soon. Be well.